here. Can you hear me okay? How are we, Wellington? Are we having fun today? Okay, it's pretty good. Just going to see if we can get this slide deck working. I'll tell you what, does anyone know any good jokes? No? Okay. What did the 0 say to the 8? Nice belt. Very, very good, right? Yeah. Okay, so Alan forgot to mention, so I'm Gareth Parry, and I'm an accountant. I'm not really an accountant. I'm actually an experience designer. And the story I want to tell you today, just once I can get that working, good, is how a pretty well-known human-centered experience design agency came to live with a really large management consulting firm. So I thought I'd tell you all about that story. Before we get started, though, I wondered, could I run a quick quiz? Maybe just pop your hand up if you know how a quiz works. Good, so you have no excuse for not participating from now on. So first, who in the room is an accountant? 1, 2, 3. What about 3? Well done, thank you for sharing. Who in the room is an experience designer? Okay, quite a few more, excellent. Who knows who these people are? Who's heard of them before? That's a good show of hands. Who's done some work with them or worked for them? Okay, that's good, I like that. What about this bunch? Slightly fewer people, which is interesting. Okay. And who's heard of these guys? Actually, about the same amount. It's quite cool. Okay, so I'm going to share the story of merging optimal experience with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Cool? Quickly though, I thought I'd just, for those of you who don't know what we do, I thought I'd just explain what we do. So many of you have probably seen this slide before. It's one of my favorites. We help fix this kind of thing. We find ourselves addressing these sorts of situations often too. So this is a real quote from a real project that we really worked on. There's a wealth of terrible experiences out there, aren't there? And for us, an experience design team, that's really, good news, I suppose, because it gives us lots to do. But we really firmly believe that organisations that win because they are differentiated on the experience that they offer. And what our team do is design the experiences that people have when they interact with products, services, systems, spaces. And they follow a human-centered approach when they do that. So that'll be familiar to lots of people in the room. So I thought maybe I won't tell you too much about our work, but I'll really share the story, the story of our journey over the last year or so. I thought probably I should share some things that have been just awesome about that merger, right? I might also share some things that are maybe a bit more of a work in progress too, yeah? And then I've got a few kind of tips. I've got a few sort of life lessons, if you like, that we've picked up along the way that I think you'll all be able to apply no matter where you are in life. So we'll see how that goes. Firstly though, when I was saying I'll tell you the story of that merger, I heard lots of people going, why? There were some whispers from people saying, why? There are hands up going, why did you? Oh, it's not you, just your pen's just resting like that. Okay, that's good. So a couple of reasons really, and we've heard a bit about this first reason this morning. So our team have been busily over the last few years designing registration processes and fixing shopping carts for people. But what we've learned through conducting some research is actually the problem isn't the registration flow and it's not the shopping cart, it's the supply chain. Or it's how the organisation is structured, or it's how some of the sales staff are incentivised. The problems are often quite different when you delve into user research. And we were finding we just weren't able to have the conversation with the decision makers about some of those problems. We figure a large management consulting firm like PricewaterhouseCoopers might be able to help us have some of those conversations. I just had to sneak in a picture of a dreadful user interface. Did anyone work on this in the room? It's okay, you don't have to put your hand up. There are 2 people. Okay, that's a bit awkward. So this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about with dreadful UIs. Anyway, our team also got quite frustrated following a human-centered process and validating a solution, only to have that solution fall by the wayside of budget or timeframes or organisational politics. Is anyone else frustrated by that? There's a few nods, that's good. Some hands, you're very good. You've warmed up a bit. So again, management consulting firms have change management teams and implementation teams. And we thought these guys might be able to help us along that journey. So July 2014, we jumped, we merged, we joined up with PwC in the hope of changing the conversation with our clients, focusing on the things that really do matter, and then seeing the changes that needed to happen through. So that's been quite an exciting 14, 15 months. So awesome things. The first awesome thing is when we joined the firm, there were about 20 really awesome Optimillions. Now, there are a whole bunch more really awesome people in the team. And in fact, we join a larger team of about 200 people in the consulting practice. And actually, if you zoom right out, there are about 200,000 colleagues that we now have at PwC. That's quite different from 20 to 200,000. The really awesome thing about this is the people that we've met, all of those little dots, there are 200,000 of them there, you can count them if you'd like. All of those people, they're really, individually and on the whole, really quite lovely people, really quite open people. They're very hard-working as well. They're incredibly talented. So if you were to go through some of the job titles, click into any of the, because it's interactive, of course, we won't do it now, but if you click into it, you'll find actuaries, and supply chain experts, and CFOs, and behavioural economists. So some very rich, quite wonderful skills that we're able to draw on through the course of our work. A couple of other awesome things here. When you've got, so there are 1,300 folks in New Zealand. So when you've got a team of that size, it's much easier to tackle quite big, quite complex projects than when you've got a team of 20. Also, a team of 1,300 is a pretty awesome sales engine for a team of 20. So those things have been really quite cool. Next awesome thing is spaces. So this is a picture of the old Optimal Experience offices in Auckland. Who's seen those before? A few of you, right? So a couple of things to point out. Reasonably bright space, lots of post-it notes. Note the cow onesie down the far end for dress-ups. I think there's a crane here on this desk in the front with a globe, and then in the background with a moustache, you can just make it out as a butt bubbler machine. I can talk about that later if you'd like. So this is kind of what our team were used to. The PwC offices in Auckland were a little different. So note the shag pile green carpet, suspended ceilings, quite solid green partitions in the closed-away offices, and the distinct lack of post-it notes. That poster looks like it's post-it notes, they're not, it's just a poster, okay, of post-it notes. But anyway, this sort of space, not quite conducive to designing experiences from, right? So we thought, well, let's go through a human-centered redesign of our space. So we started by thinking about who's using the space, how are they using the space, what do they need and want in a space? And we got a bit of inspiration. We had some foam core boards. You all know and love foam core boards, don't you? And then we took the best of those ideas and we sort of role-played them in the space. So this is Suzanne from our Auckland team. Just before we'd smashed everything down, just trying some things out, trying to prototype some different options. This is where we landed. So the space is a little different from that one you saw earlier on, right? It's got lovely polished concrete floors, and where's that suspended ceiling gone? It's disappeared. And some graffiti walls and sit-to-stand desks, and you'll note there are Macintosh computers as well, and you'll see I'm using a Macintosh computer here, formerly unknown to management consulting. Yeah, so our space, it's a it's a great space to work out of. We get visitors every day in Auckland with other visitors in tow going, this is how we work now. And it's been very cool. Okay, our work. I will talk very briefly about our work. So we're continuing to work with the same organisations that we've always worked for. We're working for new organisations too. It's the benefit of a really large firm introducing you to new networks. We're doing a little bit of work internally as well, so helping out audit teams or other project teams. or other parts of the business think about how they do their work. But our focus is still our external clients. We're working on very similar projects. Is that all right? Good. Okay. We're working on some very similar projects to those that we've always worked on. So fixing shopping carts and registration flows. But also, we've got these wonderful opportunities to tackle some quite different things. So formulating disruptive strategies for organizations, or designing operating models. That's pretty fun, right? Or reimagining supply chains. All of that stuff, that's really quite different, but quite interesting, and a really exciting use of that human-centered design skill set. Okay, also, there's been a marked increase in the use of lolcats in the firm, and we really are measuring our impact through the sort of distribution, proliferation of these wonderful, wonderful things. They're the awesome things. So why don't we just talk very briefly about some of the more work in progress stuff. This is a picture of me in focus, but Sebastian in the foreground, blurry, exhibiting what is known, I believe, as a face palm. So has anyone heard of the Kubler-Ross change curve? Cool, it's that curvy thing that goes from denial through anger, through frustration, through depression, and then finally into acceptance. So that change curve we absolutely experienced. And I think the PwC aliens also experienced that change curve when we joined. It's a natural reaction to anything that's fundamentally different. So there were plenty of opportunities for facepalm moments, I think, from both sides of the equation early on. Did anyone see this campaign? Eamon saw it. Good work. So brand has been fantastic. It's been really awesome. We are now PwC Digital. But the hard part about this is losing optimal experience. So for us, that was quite a challenge. We were very attached to that brand. And lots of people on the floor here put their hands up when we asked about who knew optimal experience. So that was quite a big deal for us. I think that we probably didn't mourn that enough, and I don't think we celebrated that enough as a team. And so I think what that meant in the early stages of the merger was we spent a bit of time looking back at what was in the past and what was awesome about the past, and not enough time really enjoying the present moment and this kind of coming together of two very cool organisations. So PwC Digital really is the best of what made optimal experience, and the best of what makes PwC, PwC. So I think it's a good thing, but it was a work in progress. It was quite tricky early on. Culture. So culture, this is what you believe, how you behave. This is an example of culture at work, I think. So what we're looking at is a midwinter Christmas party with our two founders. Actually, I've got one more quiz question. Is anyone in the room who founded Optimal Usability today? Where are you? There he is. Can we just have a hand for Sam? Good to see you, Sam. This is Sam, dressed up as Santa Claus. He's the Wellington Santa, and Trent here is the Auckland Santa Claus. So it's this kind of stuff that culture is made of. It's also this kind of stuff. So this is Pie Day in Auckland. You'll note we had to put blue tarpaulins up to prevent sort of splash from pie mess, real greasy pies, aren't they? Very greasy. This is also culture, so this is Blue Check Shirt Day. This was slightly ironic in that one thing we noticed about the really wonderful 200,000 colleagues of ours is they all wear blue shirts and blue suits. But actually, what's been very cool is next time you meet someone from PwC, just say, "Could I see your socks, please?" And they'll probably look a little more like that. I don't know if you can see these. The front row can see them. I've got some nice red and white stripe. You want me to put my... See, like that? Some nice socks. So coloured sock proliferation has been a very cool thing. So when we came into PwC, we subscribed to Dan Pink's drive philosophy. So that is that people are motivated at work when you give them autonomy over what they do, and you give them opportunities to master what they do, and you connect up their own personal purpose with your organisational purpose. So that was a very firmly held belief by the Optimillion team. Turns out it was also held by the PwC team. It's just they were a little later to it than we were, and they practiced it in a slightly different way. So the work in progress there with culture is that it just took a little bit of time to negotiate that stuff. I think anytime you add a person to a team, your culture changes subtly and slightly. So when you inject 20 people all of a sudden into a consulting team of 200, it changes quite a lot. Change can be hard sometimes though, right? Okay, how we work. So this is how we work, post-it notes and big foam core boards and what have you, and lots of standing up. And this is what management consulting work looks like. So you'll note there's some graphs, very important. Blue suits. No, not really. This is actually what management consulting looks like. So this is the consulting practice, 200 folks engaging in an all-hands-on-deck workshop. This is a room of auditors, and they are account planning. Does it look like account planning to you? So this is quite different, I would say, to what account planning for auditors looked like about 3 years ago. But you can see that the practices are actually really quite similar, and that's quite heartening. I think the thing that's been a work in progress, though, is the order that we do things in is sometimes subtly different. The priority that's placed on some of those things is sometimes subtly different. The language that's used. When we say persona, what do you mean by that? What does research mean to you? So there's quite a bit of time for us just sort of translating and negotiating that, how we work. That's been a bit of a work in progress too. Yeah. Who's a big fan of Lotus Notes? Oh, yeah, oh, okay. We'll talk to you later. That's it. Is there a spot prize for this gentleman here? No? Yeah, okay. So Lotus Notes. Lotus Notes, the team who have tried to engineer Lotus Notes at the firm have done a really splendid job of it. It's had to handle some very, shall we say, rigorous administrative processes, plus a few other nuances, but it is still Lotus Notes. It is still full of just dreadful interactions and UI gotchas and pinpricks. So yeah, this kind of thing. I mean, what does that even mean? This is a regular cropping up thing for me. Anyway. Okay, tips. I've just got a couple of tips that I thought I'd run through with you to kind of finish off. So, well, maybe not a couple, maybe I've got 5. So this first one, these are your life lessons, people. This is what you can take away from here. So the first one is to embrace change. It really is the only constant. This is actually the PwC reception area being completely transformed into a prototype. So I'm not sure that the firm realised that we were doing this, and so it was a bit of a mess the Monday morning afterwards. Plus some of the tables that we were working on had Sharpie all over them, which was a bit of a problem. I think we damaged some art too, but embrace change, it really is the only constant. That was from both sides of the table. Everybody loves post-it notes in a warm-up activity. It is absolutely true. We've worked warm-up activities. We've had accountants walking around the room pretending to be animals of different kinds. We've had singing with farmers. The works, right? Everybody loves one. Do you want to do one now? We don't have time. This one's quite important, I think. So desirability has 2 friends, and they are viability and feasibility. So as experienced designers, we're really good at figuring out what sort of experience do people need and want? What is desirable for them? But do you know who's really good at figuring out viability? Economists. Who has economists now working with them? Yeah. What about feasibility? Who's really good at figuring out feasibility? Technologists, which we also have quite a big team of. So learning these 2 friends, combining them together, that's been super powerful for us. Cool? Yeah, so this one, we talked about a sales team of 1,300, 1,300 people, right? So all of a sudden, we're the new kid on the block. We're very interesting for the rest of the firm. So we have an endless amount of opportunities that we can jump into and get stuck into. And you just need to be very careful with how you go about doing this. I debated putting a different one in here, which was ask for forgiveness, not permission. But I didn't put it in here because I realised that only lasts for 6 months. Lastly, be yourself. Different is awesome. So this is the Wellington team asking me to go and buy them coffee, which of course I do, but in a giraffe onesie. But this kind of thing, right? Just get out there and be yourself. You are different. We are all different. As humans, we're different, right? And it's that difference that becomes really, really special. Cool. Thanks.